Coming up on Network Africa. South Africa's High Court rules against the opposition's request to set up a commission of inquiry into alleged influence peddling in President Zuma's government. And Al-Shabab militants killed at least 8 Somalian soldiers at their military base in the southern town of Brotherhood. Plus, the United Nations Human Rights Council extends the mandate of a commission of inquiry into human rights in Burundi. I'm BC Adebayo. We begin in South Africa, where Pretoria's High Court has ruled that it cannot compel President Jacob Zuma to set up a commission of inquiry into alleged influence peddling in his government. The opposition Democratic Alliance has asked the court to force Mr. Zuma to set up a commission to investigate allegations that the powerful Gupta business family had influenced the appointment of ministers. Mr. Zuma argues that the public prosecutor had no right to ask him to set up a commission, as this was the president's prerogative. New allegations of inappropriate collusion between state-owned companies and the Gupta brothers has put more pressure on Zuma and ministers close to him, as Mr. Zuma and the Guptas continue to deny the allegations. Joining us now is our South Africa Bureau Chief, SeaDiya. Thanks for your time. Betty, what do you make of this ruling? Hello. Betty, go ahead. What do you make of this ruling?
Well, it's quite clear-cut. There was a pronouncement by the public protector last year, and the president, remember from the lessons from the Nkandla case, had issues with some of the pronouncements. Remember, the Constitutional Court said that the recommendations of the public protector are binding. But if he had issues with them, he had to go back to court and ask for review. So in this case, that was what he did, saying that it is not the place of the public protector to usurp the powers of the president, that they don't have to tell him how the Judicial Commission of Inquiry would be and when. Oh, that's why we'll be hearing the outcome of that at the end of October. So in this case, the judge said it's only in the interest of justice to await the outcome of that. And as the DA said in the argument, that if the president wanted to have a stay of the implementation of that recommendation, he should have asked for that in court. So he said he's granting that, the implementation of the remedial action recommended by the public protector. So after the outcome of the case, the president's application for review at the end of October, then further things will happen. Probably the DA will now know what to do.
Oh, Betty, we understand that President Zuma had earlier applied to review the public protector's remedial action, and the case is expected to be heard later this year. Do you think it's in the best interest of justice to grant the president a stay of implementation of the remedial action that's pending a decision of the review application?
As I said earlier, it's not my place to give my opinion on this, but the judge, looking through the arguments on both sides, that's Judge Motsamai Makome, he said that the DA's application is pending the finalization of that review. And let me just quote his words. He said, it would be in the best interest of justice to grant the president a stay of the implementation of the remedial action pending a decision of the review application. And in any event, the DA makes the point that only a court order would suffice to suspend the implementation of that action. So he granted that. So we'll have to wait till the end of October, which is when this review hearing will happen.
One more question, Betty. Is the Democratic Alliance likely to return to the courts?
As I'm speaking to you, the Democratic Alliance is in court regarding so many issues, so many cases. But regarding this case in particular, they released a statement after the judgment saying they're watching with interest and they note the judgment which they're studying. So they have accepted as well to wait till the end of October for the outcome of that review hearing to know what next to do. At this point, that's this done.
Many thanks, Betty, for these updates. An Egyptian court has sentenced a top Muslim Brotherhood leader, Mohammed Badi, to another life term in prison in Egypt's latest example of a crackdown against Islamic militants. The sentence relates to violence that broke out in 2013 after the army toppled Morsi in the wake of mass demonstrations against him. General Abdel Fattah al-Sisi led the military at that time and was elected president the following year. Authorities outlawed the Brotherhood after Mohammed Morsi was ousted, arresting thousands of its supporters and dissolving its Freedom and Justice Party. Mass life and death sentences are common in Egypt in what whites will call an unprecedented crackdown. Now, senior prosecutors in Libya say Islamic State militants in Libya set up a desert army composed of at least 3 brigades after they lost their stronghold of Sirte last year. The investigators learned that the Islamic State had established the army led by Libyan militant Al-Mahdi Salem Dango, also known as Abu Barakat. Hundreds of militants are believed to have escaped from Sirte before or during the 7-month campaign to oust the jihadist group from the coastal city, which it took control of in 2015. Separately, authorities had arrested a senior Islamic State commander who supervised the beheading of 21 Coptic Christians from Egypt and Sirte in February 2015. And at least 8 soldiers had been killed in an attack by Al-Shabab militants in a military base near the Somalia's capital, Mogadishu. Reports say 2 suicide bombers detonated the car bombs before gunmen overran the base in the morning attack. The militants also made away with some military equipment, including vehicles. Somalia's armed forces had only established a military outpost recently after taking control of the town with the help of African Union troops. This comes just hours after African Union troops withdrew from the area. The militant group has struck army bases in both Kenya and the southern Somalia port city of Kismayo on different occasions, killing at least 43.